All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the Secrets of Wildly Productive Remote Workers. We are in partnership with Stahl Recruiting. We also have Annabelle, who is a partner at Stahl here with RIMSA as well. Thank you, Annabelle, for being here. With the ongoing pandemic, remote work has become the new norm, and many are adjusting to this new solely virtual environment and learning how to overcome new challenges. Whether you are a work-from-home pro or new to remote work, these tips and tricks will help you maximize success. Our guest speaker, Tony Dublino of SafeRack, will be sharing his best-kept secrets on how to successfully navigate the work-from-home landscape, including eliminating distractions and keeping up with sales relationships. As a reminder, I will be monitoring chat during the presentation, so please send these via your attendee chat function, and we'll address at the end of the presentation. We will also be launching a poll later in the event, so please participate during this time. I want to remind you this session is being recorded and will be available on the RIMSA website, along with past trainings at www.rimsa.org/stahlrecruiting. At the end of the presentation, there will be a quick survey. Please respond and let us know future topics you would like our team to cover. Without further ado, I give you our speaker, Tony Dublino.
Good morning. Hello, Annabelle and Madeline. Thank you so much for the nice introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the secrets, and I'm looking forward to our conversation this morning and hopefully some participation from some of the people who have decided to join. You know, nowadays, with measures pretty much ranging from social distancing to full quarantine in place in communities across the United States, millions of people are now working from home. I'm sure a lot of the attendees here today are actually in the same situation. Lack of structure and accountability provided by an office environment has something of a new phase in actual workforce enablement that it's brought about without anyone asking for it. So there's a lot of different feelings and structure that has to change for an organization. And what we're going to talk about today is from the management concept and ideology strategically down to the tactics of you at home, the user, getting more out of your day. We're going to cover the whole range. So there are issues that we're not used to, like loneliness and feelings of isolation, distractions. You know, at any point, a dog or a kid or some home issue that didn't occur before is liable to interrupt us. Not knowing how to substitute. If anyone has a question, you can type it in. I'm not sure if you do, if you don't mind. And what I'll do is just continue on here. I'm not sure, I heard someone speak for a minute. But so what are the issues as a management team that you need to address? And just so you understand, at SafeRack, I run an area, I run the P&L for New York and New Jersey. And we provide structural steel and safety equipment. So there's a lot of in the field, out of the field engineering that goes on with all of our accounts. And we had to adjust very quickly. We stayed open, so our company was not allowed to have any downtime because we're essential. And we had to very quickly deploy new policies for a sales force of over 70 across the US. Some of the most important things are clearly communicating to employees, letting employees know right away what's expected of them in this new environment. Staying in regular communication with employees is very important. Proactive communication, individual calls with each of the team members, video chats, and online meetings, and the policies for those are important. And for teams, it can be really helpful to circulate lists, phone lists, so they can reach people when needed. People you might not have needed to reach before become very important in this new environment. Expanded IT support, so that you can now support infrastructure like we're using now to enable your team to communicate, whether it's engineering or customer service. And I think it's really important to be flexible with timing where appropriate. So when you can be flexible, I think everyone has an understanding, but I always start with, we all know these are difficult times, so if there is an interruption, if something's unusual and doesn't feel right, it's okay. So enroll people in the current situation, and again, be flexible, because work can be done outside of normal business hours. A lot of times research has shown that people are more effective when they break their day up. So it very well may be, and at SafeRock, we're using it as an opportunity to kind of restructure things in general, how we communicate between teams, how to be mindful of people that you work with, and things like that. Managers, I think it's a real important time and a real opportunity to use this wacky situation to kind of focus on taking your company to the next level. Focus on changing things that you didn't like from before, because now you have to. How can you improve customer service? You know, how can you fix a broken or an inefficient process? And how can you grow in this new reality that we're all forced to deal with? And I think a lot of people have done a lot of great things. And also there are people that have made mistakes. And collectively in a group like REMSA, a great organization, sharing those benefits and mistakes, I think is real important from a knowledge share. So you may even develop new relationships with your partners and clients that you didn't have before, because you have to. You know, there are a lot of different fundamental challenges. I'm sure some of you are going to be familiar with a few of them that I mentioned, you know, communication being one of them. Getting face time with remote employees, which is real important to clients. I'm sure some of you are experiencing mistrust, you know, among remote employees because they're uncertain. There's a big issue perhaps with work-life balance that, while I think is easier to satisfy and address strategically from a management perspective in the new environment, still has to be addressed. So there's a lot of information about how working from home can be less motivating. And we're going to share this with everyone on the call so you can have this data. But, you know, this is all data from the Harvard Business Review. The key is that there are also amazing ways that you can use to experiment solving problems that you may have, but also getting feedback. Now is the time when you need to get the feedback and listen, not just to your customers, but to your employees, to your customer service reps, to your engineering department if it's relevant, to your sales department for sure, and then back to your plant. And all these communications can be worked on with new tools and establishing new processes, as long as you come from an attitude of wanting to help them, whether it's a client or an employee. And I think that's what's key. But you can see some of this Harvard Business Review data is pretty interesting, as opposed to empowering or negatively affecting. So there's positive and negative motivators. You know, some of the negative motivators that we've seen and experienced, again, are emotional pressure, anxiety, feeling of isolation. And a tool like this that we're using right now, whether it's WebEx or Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and I don't think have the time to get into the detail of which are best, and they're probably all best for certain companies. But I will have a handout on some of those tools that can help with this kind of communication. You know, economic pressure. Right now, I'm not sure if I'm accurate, but 40 million or so people aren't getting a paycheck. This is a big situation for a lot of families and their children. And so it's real important to start to understand what you can do to help them. And certainly there's a lot of companies doing that now. And inertia. Inertia is real important. I mean, personally, you know, I was looking at my best year in a long time, and, you know, 2 months later, I'm trying to figure out if, you know, New York and New Jersey, as they do open, if I can ever get on site to my refineries and, you know, rail terminals and things like that. It's difficult So you're going to see that some of the issue that cause negative motivation are going to continue. And so it's real important to address them. At the same time, there's positive motivators. You know, I've been made it kind of one of my goals to find fun things. How do you make it fun? I think most people actually, as they work at home, find they work maybe a longer span, but less hours, but they're more efficient because they can, if they take a moment to think about it, create a different sense of purpose and a different schedule in their day. You know, seeing how people are making an impact on your organization at this time is very important in communicating that. And of course, what better time for professional training, whether it's required safety training or it's using tools like we're talking about, training for that. It's a great time to do that. And those are all real positive motivators. One of my favorites that I discovered in doing a lot of these meetings is the ability to, you know, do something outside of the box. You know, don't be afraid to use humor and surprises. This organization, GoToMeeting, and I'll provide anyone that wants the actual URL, which is sweetfarm.org, GoToMeeting. So you'll have our contact. If it's not on the handout, please ask. This is a great way to motivate people. Imagine every, you know, for me, it's every week you have 50 people on a Zoom meeting, and now one of those people is actually a goat, or in this case, a llama. The opportunity to do that and invite a llama to your Zoom meeting for, I think it's a $100 donation, will break up the monotony and really teach your people a little bit about factory farming and perhaps animal rights at the same time. So you can, if you think about it, you can do a lot of creative things in this new environment. And it's important that as a manager, you think of those and you pass those down. So I mentioned a couple of times, and the ladies are going to be kind enough, Annabelle and Madeline, to hand out a list of all of the different tools that we've discovered. But whether it's taking notes in an automatic way or team chat like we're doing now, you know, the ability to brainstorm, and real important is you know, in this particular presentation especially, is how do you minimize distractions? How do you make sure that your work environment is set up like a kitchen, right? You have a triangle. Right now, as I speak to you, I have 2 large monitors. I have my laptop monitor, I have an iPad and an iPhone. So for people that get anxious because they're never able to be down for even a minute, because an email might come in from Phillips Conoco and there's a problem, and you know, it could be that someone's hurt. I'm able to see information, and I'm sharing this with you just because that's what the webinar is about. I'm able to see an email that comes up even while I'm talking to you and address that, pass it off, because it's perfectly fine to continue working as you speak to people in a webinar or whatever the environment. And these are the kind of conscious rules you need to make for yourself. So you have to be able to continue on as you were before. Emergencies will happen. Set your environment so that you can do so in a way and use different tools. So strategically, I think it's real important that management uses this opportunity to restructure communications, tools, and I think that a lot of people will see that costs get displaced in a different way so that the CFOs can analyze how it actually is more efficient for people to work from home. And if you are someone who's going to be working at home, who is affected either way by these new policies, then we need to address your concerns as well. So strategically and at a management level, all of this has to be established and then of course communicated, but also you at home have to do some basic things. And many of you have probably done some of these, and if not, then hopefully they'll be helpful. From your workspace, which I just explained in my example, Wi-Fi. The first thing I tell everyone is to call whoever your provider is and tell them it's too slow. You're not lying, it's always too slow. You shouldn't wait until it is too slow. You should once a month call them and ask them to speed it up. And what it does is it makes sure that you're always on top of the bandwidth necessary for meetings like these. To enable webcams, does your webcam work? You know, obviously, you can see from my picture, these last 2 months, I've aged about 20 years. I'm actually 18 years old. But all kidding aside, I think it's important to set up your stage as if you were performing, whether it's your equipment, your tools. Again, I'm not maybe the best lit person. I happen to be in an area, my personal circumstances, 4 teenage daughters, 3 dogs, and 2 months locked in a house. But you need to be comfortable, your chair and your equipment, and your company should support you in these office supplies and expenses. You shouldn't be taking on at a time like this more expenses without your company supporting you, but that takes communication, getting approval in advance, and asking if they have standardized processes for this, and if they don't, suggesting they get them. People shouldn't be anxious for no reason. It should become easy for you to support this, and you should demand that the communication serves your needs in regard to being the actual user of these new tools and systems. Good lighting is important. Make sure you have forms and anything else that you use regularly that are available to you. And even a list like I showed you of where everything is online to go to for a brochure, for a process explanation, whatever it is you're looking for. It's important to share that in a very formal way, regularly, back and forth between management and the employees. That's how stuff gets done. Now, one of the things that I did right up front, and we suggested all of our teams did, was address any closures of company departments and or functions. So as a remote worker now, I'm not going into an office where I can walk across the hall to IT or walk down the hall to my CFO or my controller or my engineering department. So as the company has dispersed, we've had to create, again, new processes as to how to communicate, because that's going to be really important for your team. It's going to be important for you, but also all the way up through management to be able to make sure they have in your hands what you need to get the job done. So identifying those, any limits or moratorium on face-to-face meetings. In our case, I'm still not allowed to visit plants in New York City or New Jersey until 2 weeks from now, possibly. So we get a regular communication. We set that up from HR on the CDC's policy. Now, I think everyone does that. But what about, where do you get fireproof face masks? What face mask is required as a company? What airline policy does a company have? Are there certain airlines you can use and can't use? All of this needs to be, again, in a regular new environment type email, explained back and forth, because you're going to have feedback. Hey, that policy doesn't work for me, between management and the employee. And the employee, and again, this perspective is that the worker, not the management, the worker has to be served to get his job done. Delivery times for us, that's one of the things that we've had to address is delivery times, because we ship large steel things, and ordering or routines like that. As you put your CSRs at home, your inside sales somewhere else, it's going to be real important to, in my opinion, process outline that. And what we like to do is make it so that no matter who answers the phone or initiates a process, that it's explained as such that anyone can do it. So sometimes right now we have people in our plant that are answering the phone that have never answered phones before, but they have in front of them a process that's very crystal clear as to what to do. So you can repurpose or be repurposed to handle more of what's necessary during these unique times. Anybody that's interacting with customers, again, so everything that we talk about could be seen from the perspective of dealing with employees, but as well dealing with clients. And as you know, of course, the motto, clients come first, and they're never wrong. It's really important that your executives express what has to happen when interacting client-facing with stakeholders, to inform them about, first of all, new processes and safety measures that you're taking. For me right now, a big project, have to get on site, can't get on site. Well, now I have to have a medical exam. I have to have a historical record of where I've been. If I've come off a plane, they want to know. Our whole 70-person sales force has to be empowered to do this a very easy way. So again, during this downtime, establishing new processes that serve the way we have to do business now is really important and can only happen, in my opinion, in a two-way communication. Now, I personally don't, this is what I wear when I show up at your location for work. So while some people wear suits, I say if you're in your home office, wear a suit. You know, your home schedule will need to be different, but the total hours work should be the same. So if the hours are the same, you need to get up, you need to shower, get dressed, and you could do that as normal. You might be able to wear more casual clothes. You know, some people might have to have a suit on usually, but you should, whatever that routine is, you shouldn't stop and do it differently now. You should definitely look nice. You should get up at a certain time, be at your computer, ready to work at the regular time that you would if you were in the office. And you may want to organize your day in blocks. Now, again, this is something that each company may treat differently. But if you're working in blocks, I found that you can focus on specific tasks. It can even be used as a management tool to handle some employees that may be a little more ADD than others. So how do you get them to focus? You know, reading and answering emails can be one part of the day. Doing proposals, talking to clients can be another. Setting the expectation in advance that you're available for talking at a certain time, for fielding questions, and that your email will be responded to in a certain period of time is helpful. It's helpful in general, but certainly in these times. And end at a normal time, because the last thing people want is to not only be inconvenienced and have to maybe work harder or differently in a new environment, but they don't want it to affect their families. If you think about it, it's odd to think that you'd be home more and it would affect your family in an adverse way. But truthfully, I think that's the case. And since you have no commuting time, you can use the extra time for taking, say, 10-minute breaks for exercise, get some fresh air, improve the quality of your relationship with work in the new environment. It's easier to do when you don't have to go to an office. I talked before about minimizing distractions. You know, again, at a tactical level, as the home worker, you need to let other household members know you're not available to talk when you're not available to talk. I have a red light. People aren't allowed to come in. It's like with from the telemarketing days. When you need to concentrate, put a do not disturb sign on your door. You know, only do personal tasks when you're supposed to do personal tasks or at designated periods of the day. Again, in my household, there's 4 teenagers. They'd be walking in for money or this or that, or ask permission to leave the house because of the situation. Every 10 minutes, we wouldn't get through a half-hour presentation without 4 interruptions. So you have to establish this with your family, and engage your children and other adults. You know, your wife, your husband, if you have other family members at home, in helping and participating. You cook dinner tonight, I have to work late. You use it as an advantage psychologically for you to see it as something that motivates you instead of something to complain about, because whether we're in COVID or not, nobody wants complaints. It can feel different. You know, everyone's been doing it for a while, but so I imagine everyone can attest to it. But break up your big projects into small chunks that are easy to focus on. Make lists and use team collaboration software to organize and assign tasks. Yeah, I just think it needs to be, your consciousness about it, the way you think of it needs to be in a positive way. And again, it has to come from the top down. I think it's real important, as we said before, to communicate. I believe now we're going to do a little survey. Annabelle or Madeline was going to put a survey up. So in just a minute, you'll see a survey. I'll probably disappear from what I understand. And please, what we're looking for is your feedback.
Thanks, Tony. Just launched the poll. So please let us know, what is your top concern about returning to work? Select one of the following, and we'll give you about a minute here, and we'll go ahead and share the results.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's participation. And we're back. So, oh wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Safety and health risks, very important. Job stability, well, that makes sense, and childcare. That's very interesting. Am I live again? I can't tell. There we go. That's another thing to add to my list about how to figure out. So is my screen shared now?
Yes, Tony, you're back live. So
I'm back live.
On the poll results, yeah.
Okay, great. So let's just see this. Here we go. Let's see, and yeah, there we are. We're at the right spot. Connect with others. You know, use the ability during lunch or at breaks to hang out with your family. This is the longest I've been home in 10 years, and I'm loving it. It's great, and I intend to have it change the way I spend more time more productively in the future. If you live alone, talk to people, use these tools. I'm not sure if anyone else has, but I do a happy hour every Friday with my family. I have family in Napa, I have family in New York, family in Florida. We all get on the Zoom and we have a happy hour. And while I do it, I try to learn different tips and techniques so it serves your business life as well. But it's really about this home balance, allowing yourself a break, have some fun with it. Other people can make you feel a lot better about yourself, particularly because it's something that may be new in your schedule. So take advantage of it. And, if you have extra time, work LinkedIn, give a webinar like we're doing right here now. Take an online class, read more industry journals, take up a hobby, do something that is fun and important. Some people find that they're more productive when they work from home because there's no distractions from coworkers or company meetings. They clearly don't have as many teenagers as I do, but that's important. A lot of people are time suckers. You don't have those same people around, certainly, and if you don't have kids to worry about, or if you set it up right and you don't have to worry about them, then you really can eliminate distractions and you can get more work done with more efficacy. And it just, I think, a unique opportunity for people to embrace the change. And of course, above all, be safe, wash your hands. I personally have all the right equipment within hand's reach to make sure everything's clean. You can't be safe enough. Make sure your home office has the products you need, the wipes in your car if you're going to go out. Just keep your mind off it. And the only way to keep your mind off it is to have a process that you're always safe. You're always handling it. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Tony. We actually had a couple of questions that came in while you were presenting. If you don't mind addressing, I'll go ahead and read these off for you.
Not at all.
I find getting work done as early in the day as possible a good strategy. How about yourself?
Yeah, I love to be up at 5. You surprise, certainly in my case, you surprise engineers when you're there before they are. It also allows me no distraction because my kids are older, they're up later. So whereas I was always up till 1 in the morning guy, I'm now an up at 5 guy, and I use this to change my routine so that I can take some time to hang out with my kids, because from what I understand, at some point they won't want to spend time with me anymore. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. Get up early. Early is something that I think can help anyone.
Thanks, Tony. Work from home can be more stressful. It seems to have a psychological effect of whether one has worked for required hours. Also, efforts to demonstrate management that we are productive may be fear of losing work. So it sounds like an issue of maybe proving your work when at the home environment. And any comments on that?
One of the things that we talked about a lot was this communication. When anybody, no matter who, work, play, home, school, is in a routine for years and years and years, things, in my opinion, people have less appreciation for things. I tried to stress in my slides today, communicating back and forth. I started with management down to tactical employees. And I tried to say a few times, communication back and forth. So don't be afraid to push back. You're as a valuable asset of your company. it's your right to push back and say, hey, and now I can't tell you what your manager's going to say, but I think your manager, if I were your manager, I would appreciate you pushing back and saying, hey, in this new situation, here's what I need. How do you feel about that? And put it right up front. The most important thing is to not worry about it. Right now, you might say, well, I'm just going to do it this way. Call your manager and say, as long as I get X, Y, and Z done, your workload, whatever that is, and for some people, they could work 100 hours a day and they would never get it done. But if you're able to define your workload in a consensual way with your boss should have enough respect to you for bringing it up to begin with, because he's responsible for your productivity, and then should have some reasonable answer for you. So over communicate. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Sure.
I know you had one final screen with some contact info. I'd love for all of our attendees to see.
Do you have that? Because I don't think mine had everyone on it.
Oh, sure thing. I can go ahead and pop that up then.
It's just one. There you go.
All right. So I want to thank you all for attending the presentation. Thank you again so much to our partners at Stahl Recruiting, Annabelle in particular, as well as Tony DiBellino for being our guest speaker today. I do want to remind you that this event was being recorded and it will be available to members in good standing at www.rimza.org/Stahl-Recruiting. Please feel free to send any questions to myself, Tony, or Annabelle. And again, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Annabelle. Natalie, you guys take care and be safe.